is still the land. Someone who always can. Don't you know? Romeo.
Yes, welcome to the Treehouse for another edition of What's Up Flobo After Hours, the late night talk show that I just started out of my bedroom. And we're making it happen, y'all. Presented by Clipper Ranks. ClipperRanks.com if you're like me and you're part of Beard Gang. Gotta make sure your beard is nice. It's well nourished. Get that beard oil at ClipperRanks.com. Use promo code Flobo for a discount. How's everyone doing? We're still surviving 2020's epilogue. I have no idea what's going on, but I am not alone. I'm being joined by the man, the myth, the legend. Not only is he is a father, not only is he a comedy writer, not only is he a Mets fan, he's an all-around nice guy and a fan of Dokulfmach. Give it up for the Christian Bladt. How's it going, sir?
Happy New Year! Happy New Year!
Yeah. It's official now. Actually,
it's for real. It's either Happy New Year or Happy December 42nd, 2020. Depends on how you look at it.
The longest year ever rolls on, my friend.
Yeah, or it's you know, it's like March 263rd or something. I don't quite know exactly. You know, time is non-linear. It kind of jumbles up and it goes which any way you want it to at this point.
Yeah, it totally does, man. What is time? It's a flat circle, right?
If you want it to be, just don't ask Christopher Nolan to explain it to you.
Oh yeah, there's no chance. Probably 4 hours and a lot of brr later. I'll have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
So how was your holiday, man? I know you were doing. I saw some of your pictures of your holiday season. You know, the Christmas tree was all out, having the time of your life. You know, what was your perspective about that?
It was great. We had fun. I have two small kids. My son is 5, my daughter's 3. So they're in the sweet spot for Christmas. You know, there's the you know, here's what we want, and this is how we're gonna get it. We have a little bit of a leg up on a few people. We were able to see some family, just a small amount of family, especially considering that my wife has a very large extended family that we usually see every year. We just saw her immediate family. We saw her parents and her sister. And, you know, obviously in the age of COVID, if you go around posting those things on social media, you will definitely have it COVID-splained to you that you shouldn't be seeing anyone ever. But to be fair, it's the same little bubble of people that we were seeing literally like every weekend leading up to Christmas, because my sister-in-law, my wife's sister, is going to get married. Well, later this year, hopefully at the end of this year. And if they need a DJ, I'll see if I can find anybody that might be available. But I don't really know. I don't really know anybody in that world, so it's kind of too bad. No, but so you know, and we were just like, yeah, but you know, look. We went and made everybody get tested anyway, because my kids are in preschool, which is another thing that you can be shamed for admitting publicly in, well, I was going to say 2020, but now 2021, because everybody wants to, you know, let's put it this way. Anybody who's not happy right now wants to make sure that no one else is happy. And then there's the legitimate side of it is, you know, people want everyone to be responsible, and I'm like, look, this is you know, a lot of the people saying that maybe don't have kids, you know, we do what we can, and you know, my kids were lucky enough that they actually got to see Santa this year, because we went to he's really far away in our picture, you know, we were very far behind him, and you know, we took off our masks for our Santa picture, and then we immediately thought after was like, oh, we probably should have left him on, but we didn't. It was our Christmas card, and you know, nobody returned our Christmas card. You know, the charred remains of it in an envelope. So we navigated it successfully. We managed to see some family, and it was a little bit more laid back than usual, which I think I was all right with. But what about you, Flobo? I mean, was it just you and Mr. Met, or what did you do for the holidays?
Kind of the same thing. Just before I get into that, I just want to say thanks for everyone calling at the chat here. Derek Fisher, Haywood Wong, Kirsten Marie. I think we got a little bit of love there for you, too. Hey!
Hey,
If you
look
have
at
questions for
that.
Christian Blatt, let me know in the comments. Thank you to all of you guys who are watching live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. But for me, my holiday was pretty much subdued. I worked New Year's Eve. I DJ'd I want to say driveway, but it was like a really big driveway in a cul-de-sac. It was like the luxurious driveway New Year's Eve. So pretty much New Year's Day, I kind of chilled out and watch Honeymooners. That's what I do. You know, I watch that every New
Well, they
Year's
always
Day.
did that. That's a growing up in New York thing because
Absolutely.
WPIX Channel 11 they would always have the Honeymooners marathon,
Mm-hmm.
and then a little bit later it turned into the Twilight Zone marathon,
It
and
did for a couple of years. Yeah.
Sci-Fi Channel continued that trend for a while. So I loved that idea of like watching the Twilight Zone in the middle of the night, because it's like you get home late and you're like, oh, there it is. But there's something very comforting about the Honeymooners,
Yeah. I tell people like for all the shows in that time period, that's the one that was like the most realistic. I mean, they lived in a shanty of an apartment in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
The guy drove a bus. Like Ralph Cramden was
Yeah,
the American
and
dream.
and you do have to love any show where the catchphrase is a threat of domestic violence. So
Different times.
do you
Thanks,
do you remember that? I know I'm older than you, but this isn't that long ago. Trey Parker and Matt Stone had a sitcom. There were only a few episodes of it. It was called "That's My Bush." It was
Oh, yeah,
George Bush's
yeah.
president. Yeah. So their catchphrase on that show, George, the guy who played George Bush, was, Laura, one of these days I'm gonna, and then the audience would say it with him, punch you in the face.
Wow. Yeah, that's
So
definitely
even 2001, that was
yeah.
very edgy. Yeah.
Parker and Stone. I remember even like Futurama Fry making a reference like that. It's like, oh, this is a
Yeah,
reference for
right.
beating his wife. Haywood Wong asks, will we do the WandaVision recap with me? That's me. I don't know.
Are
'cause
you doing a
Christian-
WandaVision recap?
No, I can only do one recap that you could ever be nearby. Because I did a Star Trek recap and it was all this drama. I swear. I had Nikki Bailey on a show of mine today. And it was just like, well, are we cool? I don't know.
Oh no, Nikki Bailey must have.
You're
Which
joking.
Nikki Flobo and I were part of various Star Trek after shows at AfterBuzz TV. Nikki and I did a Discovery show on my YouTube channel, Bladtcast, and many weeks we cajoled Flobo into joining us, even though he had his own show, the Commander's Log. But no, I don't know. I don't think that there was real drama there. I think there's
It was West Side
plenty of
Story
room
drama.
for it.
Let's do one of these. One
yeah,
every week.
but no, for WandaVision, the show that I've continued doing since the AfterBuzz TV hiatus, the summer hiatus that is going to last till fall of 2020.
Right.
So as soon as that's over, I'm sure everything's going to be up and running as normal as soon as that's over. But since then, we've been doing a show called Marvel Movie Talk, which is a little off-brand from a show that was a staple of the popcorn talk called Marvel Movie News. And so Marvel Movie Talk is going to be on Fridays, I believe at 2 Pacific, 5 Eastern, so that we can have it be basically an after show for WandaVision, but we'll also talk about news. Like there's news about Deadpool, there's news about Oscar Isaac being Moon Knight, there's a bunch of other stuff. But primarily we'll talk about WandaVision, which I don't know, I'm very excited about because it's going to be so different,
Yeah, I have a question about that. This is taking a step back with us not having the access that AfterBuzz has with having all of these services already pre-bought. We got to like pick and choose our medley of services.
Sure.
What are ones that you have? I guess what is your mix?
So Disney Plus, again, I have 2 small children, but I pre-bought before the launch 3 years, and the way that it worked is the 3rd year is essentially free. Okay. So I upfront paid for 2 years, which, by the way, I did do something like that with Sirius XM back when it was just called Sirius. At the beginning of 2006, right before they had Howard Stern, I bought a lifetime subscription for $500, which seems insane to spend $500 for the radio when the radio was free.
I was an XM guy. I totally get it.
Yeah, but I've never given them another dime in subscriber fees, and it's now been exactly 15 years. Yeah. So, there's something to be said for just to help and prop them up early. So anyway, so I have that. I may share some access with some of the streaming services. I will tell you that I will not pay for HBO Max.
Right.
The only way I will end up with it is if I want to like pay for HBO,
Right,
because
fair
I
enough.
want to watch what's on HBO. But that was and that one's like $15 or something, and I'm like, look, don't pass it off on me because you're putting all your movies out on streaming.
Yeah.
Like your theatrical movies, like don't pass the buck to me. At least Disney Plus, I think it's going to go up now, but it's been like $7 for like more than a year. Like
True.
that's completely legitimate. $7. CBS All Access. Let's just say I have shared access to that.
I think you and I both have shared access.
I think we might know the same person.
Yeah.
But Netflix is the one that's kind of easy to justify because they're the ones that are the most consistent with, you want to talk about new content every week that Flobo provides. That's like new content, like every 5 minutes, there's some new show. And it's like, you could go through Netflix and just keep finding new shows. Yeah. Derek Fisher. Wait, the Derek Fisher, D Fish?
The DJ Fish is hanging out in the chat every week, man.
$15 a month. But I guess the one thing that I'll say, even though I'm not a fan of HBO Max, is that you get HBO like through HBO Max. You get the HBO programming, and I think HBO is $20 a month or $15, whatever it is. So you're spending just as much as you would for HBO.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, do you really, do you want to get all 10 seasons of Friends? Some people want that. There's some archival stuff, some stuff in the library. So, but I don't know, which ones do you have, Flobo?
So, I guess, do we count the ones we share? I guess.
Yeah,
So
because I share Hulu, so I pay for Netflix. I share it with someone, and that same person we share Hulu.
Yeah, for sure. So I pay for the WWE Network.
Oh my God, MLB Network, the MLB.TV. I pay for that every year. It's like $150 for the whole season, and it's well worth it. But anyway, sorry.
I've done it in the past. Like I do spotty things because sometimes there's certain seasons where the Mets just do that homestand, like here in LA, or the AL West plus the Dodgers, and you can't see any games because they're all blacked out. No, so I pay
so
for.
Flobito's never heard of a VPN. Okay, all right.
I've never heard of it. What's that? I have Hulu. No, sorry, I have Sling and WWE Network. And I have shared access to ESPN, HBO Max, and CBS.
Yeah, and you need WWE Network for all the
it's a write-off
content. Whoa. Yeah, right. Exactly. Well, honestly, this is all a write-off. All these things. So we could get more of them. I had gotten as a gift for Will Sterling, one of the guys that I do the Bladtcast with. I had gotten him the DC universe.
Oh yeah, before
I had like Titans and the Harley Quinn animated series. So because I got it for him as a gift for Christmas, I also had a login for that, and that doesn't really exist anymore. It merged with HBO Max.
Yeah, you'll get the animated shows, but all the movies are all on Max.
Yeah. So
Derek Fisher's right. Like NHL Network, it's like $20. It's like worse than cable now. It's like, how do we pick and choose which ones are important? You know what I'm saying?
No, yeah. I mean, of sports, and I don't quite know. How much do you have to pay for the WWE Network?
$9.99 on the 9th day of every month.
That's not bad. I mean, if it's something that you watch, I wouldn't get $9 of usage out of it. But for somebody that watches a lot of wrestling, it's see, that's good. WWE and I would say MLB have been really smart about streaming and basically online content. I mean, I've had the MLB package through the internet since before streaming video really worked very well. I would just listen to the radio. I would listen to WFAN back in those days, and you could hear I would just listen to the radio broadcast, and I'm like,
put it in the books.
Yeah, exactly. Howie Rose put it in the books. I interviewed him once for the podcast.
What?
It was a huge thrill to talk to him because he had a book. He had a book out at the time, so I got to talk to Howie Rose. But what was I going to say?
I don't know. You're a
Oh
legend
yeah,
now.
yeah. So yeah, so MLB's done well, and it's like the NFL's never really figured it out. They've never done well, and just hearing that the NHL Network is $25, like I don't know. I think that if MLB were $25 a month, I probably would pay it because I wouldn't just watch the Mets. I would casually like watch a lot of baseball. So I could see if you're really into hockey. Like I have a friend from college, my friend Rob. When he's in Vegas, he goes to the sports book and he does like 3-team hockey parlays. And he like,
Wow.
yeah, and he does the way that people gamble on other sports,
Yeah.
the way that people gamble on
In
American
real sports.
he gambles on hockey, and I'm like, okay, look, that's great that you're so into it that you know that. Oh, Calgary's taken 2. Yeah, all right, I'm going to take the points. Along with the Oilers. I hope.
Yeah.
I don't even know if the Oilers are still around.
I don't think they exist anymore.
Yeah,
They're
They're
like one of those weird teams, like a Thrasher or something.
Yeah.
I actually do. When I have MLB, I'll have the Mets for sure, but the other presets I'll have the White Sox and the A's. Haywood Wong asks, "Do you guys follow Harry Rose on Twitter?" I do.
He's a relatively new.
Yeah.
He's very entertaining on there. I also follow his daughter Alyssa Rose, who covers the Mets, and they're very funny when they interact with each other. Go Vegas Golden Knights. The interesting thing is that they play at that arena in Vegas, T-Mobile, and my in-laws have a timeshare that's like basically like the other side of the strip from there, and I didn't quite realize exactly where that arena was the first year it was open. And usually my family and I, we would go to Vegas for a week, not a week, but like 3-4 days after Christmas. We would all go. It's actually fun for the whole family, believe it or not. Not this year. We didn't go this year. But I remember the first time I was there, I was just like, God, the NHL team is so popular. Everybody's got jerseys here. And then I realized, I'm like, oh, they're walking into the arena. That's why there's such a high concentration there.
That city took that team really hardcore. I didn't think it would, it being an ice sport, but Vegas born and all that. JLJ Media says, saw one hockey game my whole life. It was Byron Lemieux's last game with the Pittsburgh Penguins, which I thought was pretty.
I mean, look, James, if you're going to go to an NHL game, it might as well. It might as well be the one to go to. I saw Michael Jordan play once. And I don't have the date, which I should, because I tell this anecdote periodically. This was Jordan with the Wizards, and it literally. I remember they said it was like the day after. I remember hearing on the local sports coverage, it was statistically the worst game of his entire career. It was like at the end, basically.
Yeah.
So this would have been like going to see Babe Ruth when he was like player manager for the Boston Braves.
Right.
This was really this was not in The Last Dance. This game.
I had a similar situation watching Landon Donovan play his last couple games. You're like,
I did go to Cal Ripken's last game though. That was actually pretty cool.
That's fun.
Yeah, it was one of those weird things. If you remember that, because that was 2001. There was the week of 9/11. Obviously, those games all got postponed, and they got put at the end of the season. And a friend of mine who lived in Boston, actually still does. My friend Adam lives down there. He was a Red Sox fan. And so that ended up being the last game of the season, the game that was supposed to have been played on, I don't know, say September 18th.
Right.
So he ended up having tickets to Cal Ripken's last game. So he brought me. So, I've seen some cool things in sports. But as a Mets fan, usually I've seen just some just awful, terrible things. Like I went to 2 World Series games in 2015. I'm very lucky that I got to go. They were so much fun. They had 3 home games in that World Series, and they won the first one.
All right.
I went to the 2 that they didn't win. But it was still great. I mean, I between those 2 games, I spent a lot of money. But I also flew out to New York. I stayed in Manhattan.
Yeah,
of course,
man, luxury.
But I always regretted not like coughing up, like, I don't know, to see the Mets in 2000 in the World Series would have cost me like $200, and I kind of didn't have it. But then I spent 15 years of like, yeah, but I should have gone,
Right,
So
no, I totally get it. I was a little
I
young for
did
that.
in
My parents wouldn't go with
2015
me.
then, and look, the games were fun basically right up until the end in both cases. They were like, there were great moments, and then they just didn't end well
I got two questions for you. One is from
Yeah.
JLJ Media. He says, "Is Christian underground?" And the second
Yeah.
question I had for you.
So James, obviously a huge fan of the Bladtcast Entertainment Network, and you want to talk about people doing competing after shows. James and our friend Ryan, they did a Mandalorian show, and and I did one with our friend Rachel, who you and I and Rachel did Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Happy New
So
Year.
we had competing Mandalorian after shows, but I'll tell you what, that there were a lot of people who would tweet at both sets of hosts. So there wasn't enough Mandalorian after show for people. So Flobo, you should have done one too. You should have been the third one.
I'm afraid of Star Wars, man. I haven't finished the movies. Like that whole thing is too big for me now. They need a Star Wars Discovery.
It's too big now. Yeah, no, I agree.
Star Wars Discovery.
Yeah, look, there's not enough Takuvma. Well, yeah, but yeah, you can, it's like Mandalorian exists on the fringes of it, so you don't need to be that well versed. Yeah, Haywood Wong is actually one of the people I was thinking of, and I love that Haywood Wong is a Kathy Kelly guy, by the way.
Oh, really?
Distinguished AfterBuzz TV alum. It says right there.
I know it said. I can read, Christian. I didn't think you knew. Like,
you didn't think I knew Kathy Kelly?
No, I didn't think that you would be surprised or like delighted that he's a Kathy Kelly.
No. Because she's delightful, and she was a guest on a show we used to do, sort of adjacent to AfterBuzz, the Tomorrow Show that Kevin Undergaro would host, and she was there. It was like October 2016, and I was the guy who pretended that I knew a lot about politics, and she was like, I don't know, I'm hearing. Getting a vibe on Trump, and I'm like, oh, you're crazy. Yeah. And I actually thought about that night. I'm like, oh yeah, no, Kathy Kelly was right. She could smell what the Trump was cooking. So
wow,
it
fits.
That's why I said it.
I love it.
Anyway, just to James's earlier question, this is a room in the back of my garage. It's a little door, and this is basically my wife and I affectionately call this room the murder room because it's soundproof, and we haven't murdered anyone in here yet, but we could. No, so that, and it's just this little storage room, and these boxes legitimately have comic books behind me, and we sometimes try to dress it up a little bit, but it's I like the bunker mentality. I think in 2021. That was sort of the thing about doing all these shows in the pandemic in 2020. There was like a real bunker feeling of everything. So I'm like, this is the perfect location. But I'd be doing stuff, and the kids would be running around upstairs, and you would hear them sometimes on shows that I was doing, just like running up ahead. But especially when we're doing something after hours, I have to be down here because I can't talk this loud upstairs, not while the kids are sleeping. So. Right. Anyway, I talked in a circle about a lot of stuff, but hopefully
that's great. I guess my second question is, I want to see your lament, because being a Mets fan is one of those things where everyone kind of like rolls their eyes at you, especially in New York. Of all the teams and all the sports in the world, why have you not quit the New York Mets? A team that the people who even hate baseball will laugh at.
Well, they got me in a way that makes sense. So when they won the World Series, I was 10. Was very impressionable, and my brother's 5 years older than me, so he's a Yankees fan because of how great they were at that time. But it is very easy for people, even in New York, to forget just how bad the Yankees were. Now, like all the Yankee fans in my school still loved them, and every year I'd have to hear about Don Mattingly, who will never be in the Hall of Fame. Nope. So let's just get over it. All right. I think he's a better manager than he was a player, but that's besides the point. Yeah. He could at least stay in uniform as a manager. But and just there was so much excitement about that, and so it was like the typical like pusher of like, hey kid, the first taste is free. Come on, it's all right. and then it's like I couldn't quit them after that, and
Yeah.
it's like they would be good enough every once in a while, and it was easy to not follow them when I was in college because the team was largely terrible. But then by the end of the 90s, they got into the playoffs, and then they were in the World Series in 2000. But yeah, there's so many stretches of just how bad they were. I just find it to be character building. I think when you're a fan of a franchise that has too much success, like the 90s onward Yankees, you just end up, with a sense of entitlement. And I think it's actually bad parenting to raise your kids like Yankee fans or New England Patriot fans. I mean, now it's probably fine, but it's just like, they have this expectation that things always go well. Up until the Cubs won the World Series, I'm like, yeah, no, that's really good parenting in the Chicagoland area. Is because it's like you're bad for like 100 years. Even when you're good, you're actually not that good. A guy sitting there trying to catch a foul ball ruins your entire season. The White Sox win before you do. You have all this stuff, and then the Cubs won, and then it was like, wow, no, the world just didn't seem right after that. Nothing's really gone quite well since the Cubs won the World Series.
So they're the reason the world is different now? The Cubs win the World Series?
Look, I'm just going to point out that they won in 2016, and I think there was an election that year. And you talk about how happy people have been since the year that the Cubs won the World Series. Yeah, you draw your conclusions from that, Flobito.
I blame the Royals at 15, but you could be right.
I do blame the Royals. Yeah, you know what? That's a better point. That's a much better point.
So let's talk about all the different shows you do, man. Because I know from off the top of my head, there was a Star Trek one, the Mandalorian one, the Trump Report, the Marvel Movie Talk. But you also have your own podcast and more I'm totally missing. How do you keep track of all of those, man? How's your week look like when you make your content?
It depends. There can be a lot. And the Trump Report has been rebranded as Biden Time. And
oh my gosh.
People in comedy. Yeah, I know. People in comedy will usually react well to those things.
Oh my, are you a pun? Really?
Yeah, come on. Look, everybody, my two co-hosts like that. My wife liked that, and I was like, all right, we're going with that. Also, it's not like there were 3 options for a name, and that was the clear front runner. I didn't love the other ones, so we just went with it. So I do those, and I try to not do. Yeah, see. James loves
Biden time. I don't care about viewers, but you said Biden time and 4 people left. But continue. We're out.
That's all right. So yeah, and there would be a lot. Actually, I would try to. I would, when I was working with Dennis Miller, we would do his podcast Mondays and Wednesdays, and so I would try to keep my other shows on the other days. But yeah, there were weeks. I mean, look, there were weeks at AfterBuzz where I was. I don't even know how many hours of shows I would be doing, because I would do the Netflix Marvel shows, which they would do binge style, and they wanted to do an episode. We did a binge style show together called Chambers. I always like to talk about it because people are like, well, I don't even understand what that is.
I was afraid of that show. I tell people the story all the time. I thought you were going to lead it, so I walked in there da 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 da, and then they came in and go, Flo, you're moderating. I'm like, I'm moderating the Christian Bladt?
It was such a great feeling, too, because I'm like, great. I'm just going to sit over here on the side and I got to be Frank Moran for that show. It's a little bit inside for people that...
Frank Moran.
Yeah, that's true. James and I were there a lot, yeah.
I wish I could be as self-deprecating as Frank Moran. It's an art form with that guy. He's a hero.
Yeah, he's highly entertaining.
Yeah.
Frank, who we did Star Trek with, but even Frank didn't watch this season of Star Trek Discovery.
Yeah,
but anyway, so yeah, there would be a lot of shows, but right now it's really going to just be Marvel Movie Talk and Biden Time, which I'll say as many times as possible because now that I know you don't like the title. But then there is
a pun, man. Why?
This is all the YouTube channel for the Bladtcast, which is a podcast that I started doing in 2013. We are at, I think, episode 416 right now.
Nuts.
So yeah, I mean, it's, look, I'm no Joe Rogan or Mark Maron. Those guys have like thousands of episodes, but for something that is the ultimate of like niche programming, we've done it for I guess 8 years now, and so, but that was definitely something that happened during the pandemic, was just doing a lot more of it. The technology of using Zoom and now StreamYard was just like, well, I have video anyway, so I might as well do it as video first, and then it still exists as an audio podcast. So those are the three that I'm doing right now. The aforementioned, the highly popular Biden Time, Marvel Movie Talk, Fridays, I believe, at 2:00 Pacific.
Yeah.
And the big dog, the OG, the Bladtcast, Bladtcast, that we'll get that in there every once in a while.
I think I was on episode 363. Like,
It was right around there. That's true.
Yeah.
That was the one with Flobo. Yeah.
Hey.
That was that, and that was what that was when I was just like, great. It's like all the people. My episode count is impressive. Thank you. I'm very proud of it. And there's thinking that it can be intimidating for people. That you should go like, oh no, this should be like season 3, episode 1, so people feel like they can get in. And I'm like, it's not any different. It's like, to me, like a new season is like, okay, well, look, if we add a talking dog and a precocious like 7-year-old nephew, then it should be season 3.
Cousin Oliver, yeah. No,
Yeah.
I agree with you, because my first ever podcast, people don't really know this, it's a deep cut. I did about 80 episodes of a show called 26 Stone. Like, I think 6 of the episodes still exist on SoundCloud, and that had seasons.
That's my favorite Bush album, 26 Stone, by the way.
Wait, really? Wait, no.
That's not the title at all.
I was like, wait a minute, yeah, Machine Head.
Yeah.
That's
right.
It was the same season thing. I realized they got really confusing, because it was like, oh, I'm doing season 6, episode 3. It's like, what does that mean? We're not TV.
Now, for after shows, I understand doing that, because you're doing Star Trek Discovery season 3, episode 1.
Agreed. Yeah. But like everything else has just been a straight number. This is episode 26 or 27 of our show.
I like but personally I like that. I like kind of being able to navigate, like, there's shows that there's podcasts and things that I listen to. It comes from, like, as a kid being a huge nerd, collecting comic books and like wanting to make sure I had it, as had all of them. So I need to, like, I need to navigate what the numbers are. And I don't know. I mean, when you do a podcast like the one that I do, it's like I have these guys, Will and Jeff, essentially are like my co-hosts of it. But there's a lot of episodes that they're not on. There's like the episode where I talk to you one-on-one. I'll do like musician interviews or author interviews. Just whatever I'm kind of feeling in a given week. Hey. But I think it helps to just have it be a little bit different. And and it's probably what works against the podcast that I do, the Bladtcast, is that it's not that consistent. It's not the same week in, week out. So what I always say is that it's not for everybody, but there is an episode for everybody. So like we'll do like a baseball playoff episode. We'll talk about the latest Star Wars movie when there is one. I'll do like a really deep dive on like comics and but I've done episodes that are just focused exclusively on the band Kiss. I'll do I'll talk to guys from like Kiss podcasts and stuff, and so it's like there's something in there that you're probably going to like. But then every once in a while the world dictates that we'll do a political episode, and because of where a lot of people know me from is working with Dennis Miller, those don't always go over. So we had a guy who was with us for 409 episodes. And then there was one after this last election where he's like, yeah, I'm done now. And I'm like, that's fine. But, it wasn't the first time we ever talked about politics. I think you kind of knew where we were. Yeah. So maybe you weren't really listening to the previous 409,
Right. It's kind of funny how I think now more than ever, it's like, hey, they disagree with me, I'm out. But that aside, yeah, it's really cool that you have all my... I guess I can call you a friend. Please don't get mad. Of all my friends out there, I think
we're showbiz friends. We're showbiz friends.
We're colleagues. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Although I don't know, I haven't seen you in like a year.
Yeah, what's up with that? The thing is,
no, but I see you all the time on here, so it's fine.
Yeah, it does. But what's really in the flesh, right?
Yeah.
Your count is like, it's something that's very aspirational. The question I have for you then is, what is the goal of Christian Bladt? Writer?
It's a great
podcaster?
question.
Host?
The goal has oftentimes been writing, and I enjoy sort of whatever the blanket umbrella of hosting is. I enjoy that. I've been very fortunate in different incarnations to get to co-host shows with Dennis Miller, who, when I was in middle school was, not just my favorite comedian, but he was also like one of the bigger comedians out there. Like he did the News on Weekend Update when I was like in middle school. And then he did a show for HBO, which would win the Emmy every year for comedy. It was like before the Daily Show, his was the show that always won. So the fact that I had that was like, well, this is just crazy, So because I produced a radio show with him, which that was a really like very time consuming gig. And I would co-host it with him. I would guest host when he was away. So, I had a career path, which that was in radio, and then ended up doing a podcast for about 3 years with him that was very similar to that. So the breaks periodically get put onto my career. This is one of those moments. So I like that I still have time for, I can still do the Bladtcast and stuff like that. But there's, it's sort of like the unofficial goal, I guess, would be to be too busy to do so much of this stuff. I love doing all of it, but it's because I've always had the time,
Yeah.
So, I guess the goal is writing. I don't know how you can make a living doing these things. There are some people who can, but I don't think that guys who are about to turn 45 who literally do this in their garage there's much of a market for me, so but that doesn't mean that I don't try, that I don't put myself out there, but
yeah, man.
I just don't know what's next, so I just keep on doing what I know how to do. And there's enough people that I know from different areas. There's always like, there's a chance I could work on somebody's like, political podcast, help them with booking guests. There's always a chance of, getting to do something completely different than that. It's just a matter of who wants to give me some money. That's what it really comes down to. But my wife's a TV writer, so she makes so much more money than I do. And I told her, when we were first, even before we got married, it's like, I just cannot wait till you make so much more money than I do. And I did all right. I mean, it was radio money, which isn't like showbiz money, but and then she makes so much more money than I did at that time, which I'm like, that's what I want, because I need I need you to help provide for our children, because clearly, because I'm down in the basement at 10:37 at night. Obviously, I can't provide for the kids.
Like a king. I know you wanted to ask me a couple questions. Before that, I'll say, let's play a game, Christian Bladt. You down?
As long as it's Yahtzee.
I've never played that game. All right. This is one where I call fill in the blank. I will give you some statements, and I want you to fill in the blank. Sounds easy enough?
It does, and I'm just trying to think. I'm like, am I going to play this game seriously, or am I going to try and make jokes?
You could do both, actually. They're written that way.
We'll see how it goes.
Okay, question number one, or statement number one. I am not joking, but the most underrated human being I ever met is blank.
Wow. There's a lot of different ways to answer that, and I am slightly filibustering. So the most underrated.
Yeah.
Is that was the word, underrated?
Underrated.
This is just the gut reaction. John Lovitz, because he was on Saturday Night Live. He is just incredibly funny, and somebody that I'll get calls from out of the blue. He's always like dancing around the idea of maybe wanting to do a podcast one day. That's always somebody that I might be able to work with one day, but it never quite happens. And him. Yeah. And I think that, Norm Macdonald is somebody that I know a little bit too, but I think that Lovitz is underrated because people don't appreciate just how funny he really is, because you remember him from SNL from like 30 years ago. But he's
He actually appeared on my favorite sitcom of all time, News Radio. That's why I'm a fan of him.
Yeah, that last season of News Radio is just really sad
It was
because
okay. His name-
he's only on that last season because unfortunately Phil Hartman died.
Yeah.
But I loved, which is so crazy to think about Joe Rogan being on that show. By the way,
Mm-hmm.
Joe Rogan, Andy Dick,
Yeah.
Dave Foley from The Kids in the Hall, Stephen Root as Jimmy James is just amazing. You know,
That show's underrated.
you want to talk about underrated News Radio is like an all-time sitcom. My friend that I used to do a website with, Tim Sicardo, we were pages at NBC together. That's like his number one still. Like he will say that's his favorite show of all time is News
It's
Radio.
mine too. Well, I'll say my number one 90s sitcom. I love The Honeymooners.
Yeah, it's like a top five. It's like hard to like really think about it. Like, you know, if I think about influential and stuff, I'll probably go to Monty Python's Flying Circus. But it's so great. And the final season is just sad because Phil's not there, and you know why he's not there. When somebody gets written out of a show because they had a fight with the creator, or somebody leaves to go become a movie star, like Shelley Long did. We all remember Shelley Long leaving Cheers and becoming a huge movie star afterwards. David Caruso leaving NYPD Blue after the first season so he could become a movie star. You know, so so you have all those moments. Those aren't sad. Well, they are in a different way. But, you know, Phil Hartman dying made News Radio sad to watch. Legitimate. It really did. And,
Speaking
anyway.
of CSI, I mean, Candy Alexander was on CSI and News Radio. Question.
You know, I wish I had sunglasses right now so that I
no
could
more
do-
puns. Stop.
No. You know what? I hang on. I'll be right back.
Okay.
It's right here.
Welcome back to What's a Little After Hours.
Because
And Chris is back.
CSI Miami with David Caruso, it would always be like, well, you can check in, but you can't check out. And then the theme song would come up. Like
Why is Tony Stark doing that? I have no idea.
That's the only sunglasses I have down here on my Tony Stark.
I love
Good on
it.
you for recognizing them from my Halloween costume 2 Halloweens ago.
You're Tony Stark always to me.
Yeah, thank you.
You're as cold as ice. Okay, question 2. People always wonder which is better, Star Trek or Star Wars. I say blank.
Man, that's a very, very dicey proposition. Here's my diplomatic politician like way to answer it.
Oh, here we go.
The child in me will always love Star Wars. Because I was born the year before the first Star Wars came out. I remember seeing the re-release of the original Star Wars. I saw it at the drive-in. I was 3. I remember seeing it, and one of the reasons I remember is because I had to go to the bathroom, and my dad was so annoyed that he had to take me to the bathroom because my mom wasn't getting out of the car. So I've seen all the Star Wars movies theatrically because I'm old. But the thing about Star Trek is that it's for smarter people than Star Wars is. You can be dumb and love Star Wars. Star Trek, they feel like they need to take the time to explain their made up science, and part of that is because it's mostly a TV show and they could not spend the kind of money that they do on Discovery. So it's a lot of like Next Generation. You watched it. It's a lot of sitting in that room talking about what's going to happen later in the episode because they only have enough money for like 30 seconds of special effects.
Yeah, exactly. And in some episodes, you get clip shows in season 1. What were they thinking?
And I would say that Star Trek is as huge as it is unappreciated. It is not as mainstream in the culture the way that Star Wars is. You know,
fair enough.
Star Trek 4 is amazing. I don't know if James is selling short Star Trek 4. I would say Star Trek 2 is the best film, but Star Trek 4 is my favorite because it always made me laugh so much. It's funny, but in a way that works. Star Trek 5 tries to be funny. Star Trek 5 is the only film I believe ever directed by William Shatner, and it shows.
Number 3, if the Mets did not exist, I will probably be a bigger fan of blank.
Reading. I would probably be like an astrophysicist or something, because if you think about like, it's a lot harder to focus on, I don't know, things like homework or like, oh, maybe I'll finish that book that I have,
Yeah.
But it's like when you know that the game is on, you're like, let me just check in for a few innings. And it's like, so often those games are terrible, but it's like once I have it on, it's like it makes it very difficult to
Wearing
to
your
focus.
Valdespin jersey. Yeah.
Like there was a Jordani Valdez. I was a little bit more of a Benny Agbayani guy.
Dude, that was my guy growing up. I was like, fat guys rule.
That was my guy. You know what? There was a guy who ran like an aftermarket like ticket place. It was like before StubHub, but it was like a local StubHub here in LA. But he was a Mets fan. And it was like an Echo Park kind of over by where Spaceland, the club, the music venue is. It was like it was on that street. And this guy had a Benny Agbayani tattoo. And this was like 2003, 2004, 2005. Yeah. So it wasn't that far off. But I think all the time about how that guy must still have a Benny Agbayani tattoo.
Yeah. Because he was amazing for like 3 months. I remember when
3 months that mattered. The 3 months that mattered.
Exactly. That's all that matters.
Yeah. But you know what? Baseball is the only sport that I follow that closely. And it's because of the Mets. And sometimes I needed like a kind of a methadone like come down from the heroin fix that is the Mets. Right. I just feel so terrible afterwards that I just was like I have to. Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned the Oakland A's. It's like, yeah, let me just watch this A's game at like 10:30 at night on the East Coast.
Right.
You're like the West Coast teams would sometimes help you calm down after a terrible Mets game.
That's true. That's why I became like well, before they got good, I became like a de facto Padres fan because they were like the Mets of the West, but you didn't care nearly as much the fact they sucked.
Yeah. Look, the year that the Angels won the World Series, I had already in that season been all in on them for some reason because it's 2002. The Mets were not good. And I liked the idea of them beating the San Francisco Giants because, Barry Bonds was like this villain and Dusty Baker is just somebody that I've never liked. And the fact that he gave his pitcher the game ball in the sixth inning of the sixth game and then went on to lose the World Series is it's one of those moments that you don't need to be superstitious, but you also need to not be stupid.
Right, that does help. I guess we'll do one more, and this will be kind of fun.
You put up a comment, by the way. Somebody mentioned the Orville, and I did watch like the first few episodes of that, and I did like it. It was like on before Discovery, and I'm like, oh, this is the best Star Trek show that's around. The Orville has some good Star Trek style stories, but it never really worked for me because like the comedy wasn't funny enough. So it's like you can be a funny Star Trek style show, but you need to actually be funny enough for me. To be fair, I only watched some of the first season, and it's like in the fourth season now. So I assume it's good. I like Seth MacFarlane a lot. That's one of my very lucky because I worked in radio. I got to interview. I was like on a radio tour. I think I got 5 minutes with Seth MacFarlane when he did the Western movie.
Something 8, right?
No, his movie was. I can't remember what his Western movie was called, but Charlize Theron was in it. It's not terrible, but it is also not great.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry. What was your other question?
We'll do one more because I was in interest of time. If my wife knew I did blank behind her back, she would be upset.
Participate in. Well, they're not even really auctions, but participate in some online comic book like claim sales. I've probably spent a couple dollars that I didn't need to during the pandemic, but it was a nice distraction. And I got things that I was excited. If somebody's a nerd and a big comic book fan, a Marvel comic book fan, I got Amazing Spider-Man number 238, which is a book that I always wanted. It's the first appearance of the Hobgoblin. I'd always wanted it.
Ooh,
and I spent $90 on it. And then I was just like, well, that's crazy. I'll never do that again. And then I had the opportunity to get Amazing Spider-Man number 121, which is the death of Gwen Stacy, spoiler alert, for a book that was in like 1971. And that was $200. And I'm like, that's insane. I'm not going to buy it. And then the next day I was like, Why did I not get that?
Yeah.
It's $200. I have $200 that I will spend on something stupid. Why don't I just spend it on one stupid thing? So yeah, she wouldn't love that. I don't think. I don't think she'd love that. Those $290 right there. Like, you know, if I spend the $290 and got like, you know, I don't know, like 50 comic books for it, she'd probably be like, all right, whatever. But it's like the fact that I got 2 for it. She's like, what are you doing?
What are you doing? Like, let me live. I'm happy. No. I know you had some questions for me, so I mean, if you want to chat about them now.
Well,
I'm
there
just
ain't really
dying
so
here.
much questions for you, but you know, I did want to turn the tables to the question you asked me. Obviously, what's up, Flobo? That's what I want to ask. No,
Blame Steph Sabra. It's her name. That was her thing.
that seems like a very Steph Sabra name.
I would walk in after, but she goes, "What's up, Flobo?" I'm like,
That
"Oh,
does sound
yeah."
So what's not even the end game, but what's the goal? What are you working
OnlyFans.
towards?
Yeah,
You want?
OnlyFans.
Oh, please do OnlyFans.
Yeah,
You have a
yeah.
Patreon, and
I do.
I can't do it. And I've told you. I think I even told you on one of your other shows when I was on New Amsterdam. I think I told you. I can't deal with that rejection.
It's hard. It sucks.
If I had like one Patreon, I'd feel really good. But then the second month when they decided not to renew,
Yeah.
I would be like, what did I do? Like, what's, you know?
You take it personally. You do.
Yeah.
You really do.
Like the guy who left the show after 409 episodes, I take that personally.
Yeah.
You know, you have other people that are like, yeah, I skipped the political one. I can't wait to hear what you thought of Wonder Woman 1984. I'm like, right, exactly. Just skip the one where it's going to be about politics if you don't want to hear about it. But anyway,
There was one time
so
somebody wanted
what's
to be
the so
canceled.
OnlyFans is definitely not your goal. What's the real goal?
It's a hard question to answer. It's a two-tiered question. As far as this is concerned, I would love to do these shows, like you said, to make a profit. Not like I need money way, but I would love to be able to make a living having stories and telling stories and entertaining people. I love doing it. The live aspect of it is why I want to do it. But when I closed my eyes when I was a kid, it was definitely to host my own. Not necessarily. I'll do talk. I'm not saying I would, but like a variety show, like Sábado Gigante or Vaudeville or Cavalcade or Red Tails, and kind of a thing. So I had a chance to do that and to host a show with different segments and sketches. I would love to do it. So I know that doesn't pay. I know it's a very, very small needle to thread.
Yeah.
But that's what keeps me going year after year. That's why I love this show, because I get to ask you comedy-like questions. You know.
Yeah, I love the idea of you growing up in Queens and thinking like, you know, Mom, I want to be Ed Sullivan.
Yeah, that's what it was. We didn't have cable. Okay, I'll tell you what. My mom actually get this. We didn't have cable growing up, so all of my TV were like reruns from the 70s. So
Sure.
no one my age, I'm 35. No one my age knows who Flip Wilson is. But I grew up watching that show because all the reruns were from the 70s. And my mom was a member of Reader's Digest Club. And she had like the history of comedy. So every 30 days, the VHS will come in with these old comedy tapes like Red Skelton or Cavalcade or Ernie Kovacs, excuse me.
Ernie Kovacs, yeah.
Ernie Kovacs, yeah. So like,
No, that stuff. It's like it's hard to appreciate when you're a kid, but it's like you look at how inventive it is. You're just like somebody like Ernie Kovacs, and then you know, sort of from that era, like somebody like Jack Benny. You don't understand like how big that show was, and it seems so odd, but it's like in a little bit more modern. You know, people always think when they think of Gary Shandling, they think of the Larry Sanders Show, which is brilliant. His show before that. That was on Showtime called It's Gary Shandling Show, which he co-created with Alan Zweibel, who was one of the original SNL writers. That was basically like a modern like Jack Benny show, where you sort of like you're talking to the audience and like, all right, well now let's go see what's going on. You know, you sort of wove your story into it. And I love that style of entertainment. Oh, Burns and Allen, yeah. You know, it's funny because to me, George Burns will always be God, and I mean that literally from the Oh God movies and Oh God, You Devil. Oh God, yeah. Oh, you know, one of my favorite growing up without cable stories. I did grow up with cable because where I grew up, once they put the cable lines in, you couldn't get your TV channels over the antenna anymore. Like it basically, they basically monopolized it. It's like, well, we've got cable in your town now, but you have to buy it. So we got that because we were sort of like right where the suburbs start to get rural in Orange County, New York, Yeah.
That's
But
where
anyway.
Josh Rodriguez is from, by the way.
Oh, really?
Out there. Yeah, he's like I don't know, like Haverstraw. Is that kind of?
Oh, yeah. That's a little bit. Yeah, that's a little bit.
Yeah.
That's a little bit
That's
further out. But yeah,
Rockland.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I mentioned before, my friend Tim Sicardo, he grew up in Rhode Island and he never had cable. So I remember him telling a story about a girl that he was seeing for a long time at the time. Like when they first met, they had a conversation about the film Stand By Me. And they were talking about, if you remember the movie, there's the story within the story. And it's this pie eating contest with this guy called Lardass. And everybody's cheering Lardass. But he only ever saw it on broadcast television. So he's talking about, it's one of his favorite parts of the movie is, oh yeah, and there's that guy Lard and everybody's cheering Lard, 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 Lard.
Yeah.
So, but it's like, and she's like, what are you talking about?
Right.
Like, that's not that scene at all. So it's like, oh, that's so cute. He grew up in an edited for TV world, which to me, that's kind of what Rhode Island is anyway, you know?
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like an alternate universe. Yeah.
This state has been altered from its original format to fit your
screen.
Yeah.
I did think that movies were so action packed they couldn't fit in my screen. That's why they had to edit it. You know?
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of like there's a lot of great stuff to be found, you know, sort of and somebody like Jack Benny, the example is that's a guy who is transitioning from radio to television. So it's almost like, yeah, I can still do my show with cameras, you know, and that like in the early days of Comedy Central, they would have a lot of stuff like that. And I would watch, I wouldn't watch like every day, but they had the Groucho Marx game show, the You Bet Your Life.
You Bet Your Life.
Yeah. And,
Uncle
you know,
Milty. Yeah, that was a good one. Tuesday night.
Yeah, Milton Berle, sure. Milton Berle, the universally understood to be the worst host of Saturday Night Live ever. Just because the two styles of comedy didn't mix, and John Belushi was apparently very upset. But it's like Lorne Michaels' least favorite episode, and everybody who's worked on the show talks about how terrible that week was. But yeah. But anyway,
I think that like Milton Berle and John Belushi existed in the same plane is kind of trippy.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And yeah, it's that's the kind of stuff I get excited for, because like, you know, Saturday Night Live is something that streaming is very difficult to watch because it's very heavily edited. They don't have the rights to the music, so none of the bands are in there, but they put them out on DVD. And when that season came out, I'd always heard about how terrible this Milton Berle one was. So I bought like season 3 just because I wanted to see that. So I have this like set, and I'm just like, I just wanted to see that. And they also had done like a live show from New Orleans that season, and there's also like a train wreck. So like I'm like, I want to see this stuff that I've never been able to see. It's just so there's so much that can be learned from like when things go badly, and you know, that's like a live broadcast that they probably shouldn't have been doing. But this is just like, oh, you have a comedy legend come in, you know, because you've had like a guy like Sid Caesar host Saturday Night Live, and it went well. You know, because he did. I mean, he did these shows, which is a sketch show. So I mean, that works. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I love stuff like that. That you know, stuff that doesn't work. You know, I always want to know, like, why doesn't it work? You know. Yeah.
Well, if you want that, then you're in the right place. Because it happens all the time in the show. So,
yeah.
Welcome.
Yeah, and James mentions the Smothers Brothers, and yeah, they were their show from the '60s that was like very controversial. I remember watching it in like the early '90s, and I'm just like, wait, this got them kicked off of TV like this? I can't even imagine, you know, because it was just like, you know, it was like Dick Smothers was the dumb one, and he was like dressed in like. It was like police riot gear or something, and his brother Tom says like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm going to college." And like the audience is like, "Oh!" And I'm like, "Oh, okay, I can see that," but it's like, you know, I mean, when you grow up with sort of like 80s SNL, and I loved this show on HBO called Not Necessarily the News, you know, it was just like, oh man, it's like, you know, and just to think of like where comedy went after that, you know, stuff like. You know, we talked about Trey Parker and Matt Stone, something like South Park or Chappelle's Show, and just, I don't know. So yeah, I think there's always something that you can learn from all of that, and it's easy to appreciate. You know, when something's great, like something like Groucho Marx doing a game show. That's still entertaining. It's but there's stuff that stays with you because it's funny. Like there's him interacting with the contestant on You Bet Your Life. It was a guy he was talking about how he has 12 kids, and Groucho's like, why do you have 12 kids? He's like, well, I love my wife. And Groucho just has that, he's that deadpan. He's like, well, I like my cigar, but I take it out of my mouth once in a while.
Yikes.
And that's in the 50s.
Yeah.
Where they would record that show for an hour and then cut it down to half an hour because like what he would say would be so racy. Right. And I remember seeing a clip once of like unedited, and it was like he used the word keister. And like that was something that would have to be edited out.
Yeah, you couldn't say pants back then. On
air, that's true. Yeah, but look, I still don't understand where Little Ricky came from because Lucy and Ricky, they didn't sleep in the same bed.
Right. I'm with child.
They had those two twin beds, and I'm like, I'm not climbing over there.
I guess you flip a coin, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. Anyway, my God, James mentions Orgasmo, which is a film that Trey Parker and Matt Stone did. They also did a film called Cannibal the Musical that they did on their spring break, their like senior year of college. It's definitely like a student film, but there's some just insanely funny stuff in that, especially that era, that like early 90s stuff that those guys did. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to compete with, it's hard to compare anybody to those two guys because of just like the crazy ideas they've put into the world in the last, like, 24 years now at this point,
Well, yeah, talk about like only seeing a movie edited. That's definitely Orgasmo. I only saw that on Comedy Central, so I can't even count it because I know.
Oh no, that's like not seeing it. Yeah,
I know exactly. It's not seeing it.
That's like I didn't get to see Ferris Bueller's Day Off, but I did see the first episode of the TV series with Jennifer Aniston and Charlie Schlatter as.
Everyone knows that Parker Lewis can't lose with Superior in every way.
Well, superior to the Ferris Bueller TV show, absolutely.
Yeah. But Christian, I think it's about time we get out of here. But I want to thank you so much for rolling through What's Up, Flobo After Hours, man. Here's the deal. Here's a chance. Tell me where I can find you, stalk you, parting shots. Give me all that stuff.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at ChristianDMZ. And I did mention that I have the Bladtcast, Bladtcast. You can go to Bladtcast.com. You can look on YouTube for the Bladtcast channel and just subscribe. And that's where you'll get the Bladtcast. You'll get Marvel Movie Talk. You'll also be able to find Biden time, but also archives of our Star Trek Discovery show, which Flobo was on a few times, our Mandalorian show, and I don't even remember what else I've done on there over these last weeks.
All right, Hollywood.
Yeah.
I do it all, he says.
Yeah, wow. I'm trying to think. I'm like, do I have anything else? I'm like, really, that's it at this point. Just the Bladtcast YouTube channel, Bladtcast, at Christian DMZ. I've lost some Twitter followers in the last week, so please come on over and and help me get my follower count back up where I don't feel like I'm an absolute failure.
I'll follow you again, and if you ever do a Mets report again this season, I'll definitely jump on. Why not?
Yeah, no, I'll definitely do a season preview of all 30 teams. But I did a Mets show for AfterBuzz at one point.
I follow it. I think I used to. I know for sure. I was like, all right, I'm following it. After 2 years, it was.
And if we had 100 people watching a week, I was so excited. I'm like, oh my god, we had 100 whole people that watched.
It blew my mind. I was like, there's a Mets show in North Hollywood. There's no Dodgers show.
No, I know. And look, I know you want to wrap up, but I'll just very quickly. The way that happened was I pitched the president emeritus, the founder, the leader of AfterBuzz, Kevin Undergaro. I wanted to do just a general baseball show, and then he was like, "Well, what's your team?" I'm like, "The Mets." He's like, "You should do a show that's about the Mets because then you're catering to like a very specific niche audience. Nobody's going to type in baseball podcast, but people will type in Red Sox podcast, which is one that they had. They also had a Dodgers podcast, and then there's the Mets. So you do them for teams instead of just the sport as a whole. And I think that, like if I think that it makes sense. I think that just there wasn't a huge following for that show, but I loved doing it. It was so much fun.
Yeah, I bet. There's some old images on that Twitter handle. I'll definitely check it out again. See if you add any more. You should if you haven't already. But this is What's Up Flobo After Hours. We're here every Monday night at 10 p.m. Pacific, 1 a.m. on the East Coast on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. Thank you so much. And Christian, I want you back because I want to know how all your shows are going. But until next time, After Hours are closed. Oh yeah, we go one of these too.
Live long and
Live and
prosper.
prosper.
The baddest in the land.